You're watching Silver News Daily. Subscribe for more.
Could the silver market be on the verge of a revolution? Imagine a world where silver finally breaks free from decades of manipulation, all because of a bold move by the BRICS nations, as they work quietly on a silver-backed currency to bypass the US dollar's dominance. We might be looking at a seismic shift in global finance. I know the idea of a silver-backed currency sounds like a wild conspiracy theory, right? But before you dismiss it, let's dive deeper. What if I told you that this move could not only disrupt the current financial system, but also send silver prices skyrocketing like never before? By the end of this video, you'll understand why silver might soon be the hottest commodity on the planet and what this means for your wealth. Stick around, because what I'm about to reveal could change the way you think about silver, the dollar, and the future of global trade.
I think the simple answer is two words. They won't. They won't be able to compete. And if you think about it, if the BRICS currency comes forth and you've got nations all over the world selling dollars because they no longer need to hold dollars to buy oil or to settle trade, who's going to buy those dollars? Is it the Federal Reserve that steps up and buys the dollars? And with what capital do they do that with? The Federal Reserve right now is technically insolvent. They've lost more on the bond portfolio than they had in equity to begin with. So is it even feasible to print new dollars to buy old dollars? That's you're blowing the money supply up. You're contracting it on one part. You're you're uh, you're expanding it on the other part, but in order to create dollars, to buy dollars, you have to have a buyer for those dollars, someone who will accept the dollars. So you're looking at the reserve currency losing reserve currency status, which is roughly 60% of the average central bank in the West. That's what they hold. So what are they going to trade with? Because the BRICS clearly want to trade something real for something real. And the dollar is not something real, so they're not going to accept that. What you're going to see is the standard of living decimated by 50% or far more across the West. Because you're not going to get a Chinese company or a Russian company or any of the BRICS companies. They're not going to ship goods to the United States with payment in dollars. They're going to want payment in the BRICS unit, or they're going to want payment in another something that's real. Wheat, natural gas, go down the list. But they're going to want something real for something real. And because they've financialized the Western economies, the Western financial systems for literally going on, call it 40 years, we don't make anything anymore. So we don't have stuff to trade back something real for something real. We're going to have to start all over again. And like I said, the standard of living is going to be completely decimated.
Now, let's talk about a lesser-known but critical factor driving silver demand: the solar energy boom. Did you know that silver is an essential component in photovoltaic cells used in solar panels? As governments around the world push for greener energy solutions, the demand for silver in the solar industry has skyrocketed. According to recent reports, solar power could consume nearly all of the world's annual silver supply by 2050. That's right. This single industry alone could dominate the global silver market. Bill Holter, a well-respected precious metals expert, points out that this rising demand makes silver not just a precious metal, but a critical industrial asset. As more countries mandate solar installations, like Israel's recent push for solar systems on all new buildings, the pressure on silver supplies will only increase. But here's the real kicker. If solar power's appetite for silver continues to grow, and with the BRICS nations potentially backing their currency with silver, how sustainable are current silver reserves? Could this increasing demand trigger a supply crisis that sends silver prices soaring? As we explore this, keep in mind that this is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. The convergence of industrial demand and strategic economic moves by nations could set the stage for a silver shortage, unlike anything we've seen before.
Well, that's exactly what's happened. The weaponization, it's not a new thing. The dollar has been weaponized for years and years, and they started ratcheting the the uh, the weaponization up during the previous administration. Um, and now you've got they basically stole the $300 billion of Russian treasuries, and they're borrowing or using that as collateral to fund Ukraine. So it's been totally weaponized, and there's been pushback. The pushback has been the formation of the BRICS. And we're only 2 months away from the big BRICS meeting in Russia. And I think that very well could be, if you want to call it the reverse Bretton Woods moment, where the dollar actually loses reserve currency status because they no longer want to trade and use dollars for settlement. And the amount of dollars that have been used in settlement, that's been, it has been declining, but it's going to go off a cliff. And especially if they announce a 20 to 40% backing of their new currency, they're calling it the unit. If they back that currency with 20 to 40% gold backing, you'll see pure fiat currencies collapse, and you'll see the price of gold explode.
Let's shift our focus to the East, where a quiet but powerful strategy is unfolding. China, one of the world's largest economies, has been aggressively accumulating silver. This isn't just a random act of resource hoarding. There's a calculated move behind it. Bill Holter, a seasoned expert in precious metals, has highlighted that China's silver stockpiling is part of a broader strategy to weaken the West's economic grip and fortify its own position in the emerging global financial order. China's strategy revolves around increasing its silver reserves to potentially back its currency, creating a direct challenge to the US dollar. In 2023, China's silver imports reached levels not seen in years, signaling a deliberate effort to secure this precious metal. What's more, the Shanghai Metals Exchange has consistently reported higher silver prices compared to Western exchanges, suggesting China might be manipulating the market to its advantage. Why is China doing this? The answer could lie in its long-term goal of reducing reliance on the US dollar and establishing its own financial independence. If China and its BRICS allies were to back their currency with silver, it could send shockwaves through the global economy, drastically altering the value of silver and the power dynamics in international trade. So the question we need to ask ourselves is China's silver hoarding merely an economic maneuver, or are we witnessing the early stages of a grander plan to reshape the global financial system? The implications of this could be massive, not just for silver prices, but for the global balance of power. As we explore this, keep in mind that this is just one piece of a much larger puzzle. The convergence of industrial demand and strategic economic moves by nations could set the stage for a silver shortage unlike anything we've seen before.
For an American, and especially where prices are now, junk silver is basically the same price as a 100-ounce bar or generic rounds or whatever. But junk silver, if you're going to do silver other than an IRA, and you're an American investor, you want nothing but junk silver. It's $4 an ounce cheaper than Silver Eagles. It's the smallest denomination. It's not counterfeitable. It's readily recognizable. It's issued originally by the U.S. Mint. So, I mean, junk silver is the best form to own. In gold, if you're an American, I would look strictly at Gold Eagles or pre-1933 gold. And you mentioned platinum, palladium, the other, quote, precious metals. Those are not monies. Those metals basically are have industrial uses. They're industrial metals. And when the real economy stops, how much demand is there going to be for palladium and platinum? I mean, how many catalytic converters and other uses where's the demand going to come from? Whereas gold and silver are monies themselves. And, a lot of people say, well, silver is really an industrial metal. Well, yeah, it depends on where in the cycle you are. Yes, it is an industrial metal, but when the shit hits the fan, silver is going to be the money of the people because they can afford to buy a small amount of it and they can barter with it. Gold is the money of kings. That's where you're transferring your wealth from one system to the next. You can buy property with it. You might be able to buy a car with an ounce of gold or whatever. So gold is the money of kings, and silver is the money of the common man. And those other metals that you mentioned, they're industrial metals. And I personally, I can buy them for you. I can trade them for you if you wish, but it's not my recommendation at all.
Now, let's talk about the bigger picture. The BRICS nations: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Together, these countries represent a significant portion of the global economy, and they're leading the charge in a movement that could change the financial world as we know it, dedollarization. What does this mean? Simply put, these nations are working together to reduce their reliance on the US dollar for international trade and finance. Instead, they're exploring alternatives, including potentially backing their own currency with tangible assets like silver. Bill Holder has emphasized how the BRICS nations are strategically positioning themselves to undermine the dollar's global dominance. By doing so, they aim to create a new financial system that is less vulnerable to U.S. sanctions and economic pressure. One of the most compelling aspects of this strategy is the potential creation of a new BRICS currency backed by silver and other precious metals. This would not only provide a stable alternative to the dollar, but also elevate the importance of silver in global trade. If this happens, the implications could be profound. A significant shift away from the dollar could lead to a dramatic increase in silver's value as demand for it surges. So we have to ask, can the US dollar maintain its global dominance in the face of these rising powers and their push for a multipolar currency world? Or are we witnessing the dawn of a new financial era where silver plays a central role?
Well, because it is sold short with paper contracts. It's such a small market, Patrick. Total global production of silver is only $20 billion. So it's a very easy market to control. And they absolutely have had to control silver going back at least 30, 40 years because the dollar is in competition with gold. Gold is the anti-fiat, the anti-dollar. And there's no way you could have silver running to 200, 300, 500,000 dollars an ounce and gold not move. So in order to be able to keep gold in a box and be able to point at it and say, see, gold bad, dollar good, they've had to just sit on silver with paper contracts that are completely unbacked. They came out in the early 2000s with the ETFs. And if you read their prospectus, do they really need to buy any silver or any gold? No, they can be 100% contracts and still be following the prospectus. So they don't have to have physical metal to control the price. They're doing it through paper contracts on COMEX, CME. And if you look at what's going on in Shanghai, there's what, a $3, $4, $5 premium of silver there versus silver here. And what's happening is you're getting an arbitrage where silver is being depleted from the inventories of London, of New York, and it's ending up in Shanghai. And it's interesting to note that the Shanghai inventory of silver just dropped. I think they're less than 1,000 tons now, and that's the lowest it's been for quite a while. Or I think it might be the lowest it's been since they started that market. So long story short, they've had to suppress silver. They cannot let silver look good. They can't get They cannot allow the public to stampede into silver, because if that happens, then gold blows, and when gold blows, so does the dollar system.
To understand why the BRICS nations are pushing so hard to de-dollarize, we need to take a step back and look at the history of how the US dollar has been used as an economic weapon. Since the end of World War II, the dollar has held a unique position as the world's reserve currency, a status solidified by the Bretton Woods Agreement. But with great power comes great responsibility, or, in this case, great potential for abuse. Over the decades, the U.S. has increasingly used the dollar as a tool of economic coercion, imposing sanctions on countries that don't align with its policies. Bill Holder has spoken extensively about how this weaponization of the dollar has created significant resentment and distrust around the world. For many nations, the reliance on the dollar has become a vulnerability, a way for the U.S. to exert control over their economies without firing a single shot. The turning point for many countries came with the unprecedented move by the U.S. to freeze $300 billion of Russia's foreign exchange reserves in response to the invasion of Ukraine. This bold action sent a clear message. Holding reserves in U.S. dollars might not be as safe as once thought. This event accelerated the BRICS nations' efforts to find an alternative financial system, one that couldn't be manipulated so easily. This context is crucial for understanding the current push towards a silver-backed currency by the BRICS. They're not just looking for financial independence. They're seeking to protect themselves from the economic weapon that the dollar has become. And if they succeed, we could see a significant realignment of global financial power. So the question remains, has the overuse of dollar sanctions planted the seeds for its own downfall? And could this be the catalyst that finally breaks the back of silver price manipulation?
I mean, obviously, in order to bring forth a central bank digital currency, the average person in the United States does not want a central bank digital currency. They want to stay on the system we have now, which is untenable. But what will happen is the financial system will come down, people will lose the vast majority of their assets, and the government will come out and say, we're going to issue this central bank digital currency, we'll put some money back in your bank account, and things will be better. And people will beg for that. They'll beg for the central bank digital currency, that if you and I had those, and we did this interview, they would shut our account off. I mean, it'll be complete monitoring, social credit scoring, and they'll be able to uh, shut your life down overnight for whatever reason. They're the ones who get to decide what the reason is, and you'll have no recourse.
Now that we've explored the motivations behind the BRICS nations' push to de-dollarize, let's consider the potential fallout for the U.S. economy. If the BRICS nations succeed in establishing a silver-backed currency, the consequences for the United States could be severe and far-reaching. Bill Holder has warned that such a move could trigger a dramatic devaluation of the U.S. dollar. As countries around the world reduce their dependence on the dollar, its demand would plummet, leading to a significant drop in its value. This devaluation would make imports more expensive, driving up the cost of everything from electronics to everyday consumer goods. The ripple effects could lead to skyrocketing inflation, which would further erode the purchasing power of American consumers. But it doesn't stop there. The loss of the dollar's reserve currency status could also result in higher interest rates as foreign investors demand more return to hold increasingly risky U.S. debt. This would make borrowing more expensive for businesses and consumers alike, slowing down economic growth and potentially leading to a severe recession. Holter also points out that the dedollarization trend could force the U.S. to liquidate real assets like land, infrastructure, and natural resources to settle international debts. This could lead to a scenario where foreign entities increasingly own significant portions of American assets, further weakening the country's economic sovereignty. So, what does this mean for the average American? It could mean a lower standard of living, reduced economic opportunities, and a more unstable financial environment. And all of this could be triggered by a shift towards a silver-backed currency by the BRICS nations. As we dive deeper, it's essential to consider what will happen to your savings and investments if the dollar loses its global reserve status. Is your financial future secure in a world where the rules are rapidly changing?
If you can afford one bag of junk silver per person in your household, I would recommend that you have no less than that on hand. Uh, and one bag is $1,000 face. It's 715 ounces, and at current price, you're probably looking at, I don't know, $22,000. But let's say you had all dimes. One bag has got 10,000 dimes. That would give you up to 10,000 transactions, as opposed to eagles or maple leafs or generic rounds. You'd have 1,000 coins. Let's say you had 100-ounce bars. You'd only be able to transact 10 times. And what do? You're going to walk around with a hammer and chisel some off and have a scale and say, here's how much silver there is. I mean, uh, dimes and quarters in today's world, they are the best form of barter there is for an American.
As we continue to unravel the potential impacts of a BRICS-led financial revolution, there's another critical factor we need to consider: the possibility of a massive silver squeeze. Picture this: demand for silver is already skyrocketing due to its essential role in industries like solar energy. And now, with the BRICS nations potentially backing their currency with silver, we could see an unprecedented surge in demand. Bill Holder has long warned that the current suppression of silver prices through paper contracts is unsustainable. He argues that silver has been artificially held down for decades, creating a disconnect between its market price and its true value. But with increasing physical demand from both industrial sectors and global investors, this manipulation could soon come crashing down. So, what happens when the silver market finally corrects itself? We could witness a scenario where the available supply of physical silver is rapidly depleted, driving prices through the roof. This kind of silver squeeze would not only push prices higher, but could also lead to a situation where silver becomes nearly impossible to acquire at any price. And it's not just about the BRICS nations. As word spreads about a potential silver-backed currency, investors worldwide might start hoarding silver, exacerbating the squeeze. The result? A price explosion that could see silver trading at levels we've never seen before. The big question is now the last chance to get your hands on silver before a potential squeeze sends prices into the stratosphere? If Bill Holder's predictions hold true, those who are prepared could stand to gain significantly, while those who aren't might be left scrambling. Everything we've discussed leads us to this critical point: the endgame for silver manipulation. The BRICS nations' push towards a silver-backed currency could be the catalyst that finally breaks the chains holding silver prices down. For years, the silver market has been dominated by paper contracts that have kept the metal's true value hidden. But as Bill Holder has highlighted, this manipulation is unsustainable, especially in the face of rising global demand and strategic economic shifts. If the BRICS nations succeed in creating a silver-backed currency, it could trigger a chain reaction. First, the demand for physical silver would skyrocket as nations and investors scrambled to secure this newly critical asset. This would lead to a rapid depletion of silver supplies, pushing prices far beyond what we've seen in recent decades. Second, as the manipulation in the paper markets becomes increasingly untenable, we could see a rush to convert paper silver into physical silver, further driving up demand and prices. This would expose the vulnerabilities in the current system, potentially leading to a collapse of the paper-silver market altogether. Finally, the establishment of a silver-backed currency by the BRICS could shift the balance of global financial power. The U.S. dollar, long supported by its reserve currency status, could see its influence wane, leading to economic challenges that we've already explored: rising inflation, higher interest rates, and a potential devaluation of the dollar. In this new world, where silver is no longer suppressed and is instead recognized for its true value, Those who have invested wisely could see substantial gains. But for those caught unprepared, the financial landscape could look very bleak. So what does this all mean for you? It means that the time to act is now. If silver is indeed about to break free from its shackles, securing your position before the squeeze could be one of the smartest financial moves you make. Before we wrap up, don't forget to subscribe to our channel to stay informed about these critical developments. We're entering uncharted territory, and staying ahead of the curve could make all the difference. And remember, while we're exploring these possibilities, this isn't financial advice. Always do your own research before making investment decisions. The world is changing, and silver might just be the key to securing your financial future.